All right, Tomasz, let's dig right in. Who is Tomasz and what is AirHelp?
Hi, Jim. Thank you for having me. I'm a guy living in Barcelona trying to manage this AirHelp as a company and 350 people that work for us. And AirHelp is currently the leading legal tech company helping travelers around the world claiming their rights in form of compensation, refunds, or travel insurance. So in case of any disruption, we are there to help anyone there across the world. We try to help our clients in 18 languages in 24/7 and through our, I would say, quite good customer service. We're currently number one, helping people from 220 countries. Way over 1 million a year, people come to us, ask for a different kind of support.
And is that pretty well spaced throughout? I know there's a lot of different regulations and a lot of things happening in the industry, especially in the U.S., which is where I'm based. But is it all around the world pretty evenly distributed, or are there certain areas that are hotter than others?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. So actually, we are a U.S. company, right? We are Inc. from Delaware, so we are one of the alumni of Y Combinator, but very quickly we've realized, and it was way before me in the company. Very quickly we've realized the real business is in Europe. So we centered our operations around Europe, where there is quite good air passenger ride regulation that supports travelers traveling within or outside or to Europe. US, as you may know very well, is a little bit behind with the customer rights. But we do also work in US quite a lot, trying to help clients, to reach airlines and to kind of talk with them around goodwill compensation and some, usually it's around vouchers and points. But outside Europe, we also work quite successfully in UK. That is part of Europe, but not EU. They have a separate regulation. We also work in Turkey. We've recently started to work in Canada. They introduced their own regulation. We have quite good business and lots of clients in Brazil, and now also more and more clients in Asia, traveling mostly from Middle East, but also from Southeast Asia.
So you mentioned the initial focus was in the U.S., and you see a lot of companies that are trying to, get some market entry into the U.S. that might be based somewhere else, but not a whole lot that realize that there's no market for them in the U.S. What was that was all before your time?
It was all before my time. I think the feeling was that Europe might be stronger from the very beginning, right? I don't think folks were that naive thinking US will be the only market. But, setting up company US where also the, venture capital is the strongest and opportunity to grow and succeed is strongest. There's always a hope that you can first build in US because of the scale of the market and then move on outside. Well, our journey was a little bit different, right? We first started in Europe. What is absolutely normal. Also, the founders were Europeans. They were from Denmark. So, it also helped, of course, to kind of put the market criteria first and start operations out of here. And now, ironically, we are thinking, where should we open an office in US and how quickly we should grow, right? So after 10 years, we the circle goes back pretty much.
Well, because there's some interesting things happening in the U.S. around air travel and where you guys play. So talk to me a little bit about what that is and why the timing is kind of now to start thinking about the U.S.
Exactly. And we are very hopeful of it, right? There are two things happening within AirHelp and as a part of what's there for US travelers. So one, there is extensive discussions going on within the government and within DOT with FAA reauthorization, and we are very hopeful to see new regulations, drafts popping up, whether it's Congress or the House, and the proposals are quite similar to what we see in Europe. So means travelers, we get some side of protection. We don't know how far it will reach, of course. This is very early talks. But if everything is okay, this year we should see something happening. And this is not only about, family seat allocation, and the tarmac delays or overbooking or faster refunds of tickets, but also around, compensation for your time lost. So imagine you are going on your once a year holiday in your 1 week of holidays, what you have, family of 5, we have 3 small kids and you really want to go for these holidays because you promised it to your family. And then you show up at the airport and, there is no plane because it got canceled. And the next one goes in 2 days. And in Europe, we have it covered, right? In Europe, we have a compensation model saying, okay, if there is disruption like this, of course, airline has to take care of you. The ticket refund is fully optional by, also rescheduling to the nearest flight. And it doesn't have to be the same airline. It can be next flight to the destination. But there's also compensation saying, okay, you lost your hours or potentially days. And here is, in Europe is up to €600 compensation. And something similar, if it plays in US, would be very good news for travelers for lost time. Because going on holidays actually is not so critical. It is, but it's comparing to coming back from holidays and then you see, a flight is canceled and you miss days at work, kids miss school, all what you can imagine. You have to stay and you've just checked out from your hotel, you gave back your rental car. What do? Go back to the rental car, go back to the hotel, call the employer, all of those things. So this is where the compensation model plays a very important role. And in Europe has been very successful. So we hope it comes to US.
I'm interested about particularly discount airlines, which I know is kind of bigger. It's bigger here in the US than it is elsewhere, but I'm just going to take for instance. So like Ryanair, I've probably flown 30 times in Europe. I don't think I've ever had a Ryanair flight, maybe 1 or 2, that I was delayed less than 3 hours on. And maybe I'm just unlucky, but I guess the way I'm looking at the business model of some of these discount airlines, it's almost an expectation on the participant. Like here in the US, it would be Allegiant Airlines or some of the other discount cheaper airlines. You sacrifice the knowledge that there's a good chance you're going to get delayed, but you're saving a little bit of money comparison with some of the larger airlines. So, do you see, some of these smaller discount airlines going out of business the way that regulation changes?
Absolutely, yeah. No, Ryanair is the major airline, the biggest airline in Europe, and
oh, is it
very close to number 2 or 3 globally now, right? So they are massive now, and they're doing fantastically with the earnings, if you see, and they do respect regulation in Europe, right?
Okay.
Maybe in the past, they, when they were growing, they had some more scheduling issues. But currently, they do try to operate on time. And if you look at the on-time performance, it's for sure not the worst. And it's improving on time, like all the other airlines in Europe. So I wouldn't say there is a difference between low-cost or non-low-cost airlines. I think once you have regulation in place that protects passengers, airlines have to take it into considerations while setting up schedules, right? Because then they suddenly have to look, okay, I cannot rotate the plane in half an hour, right? Because it takes time. I cannot put on schedule 45 minutes flight between, Bristol and Barcelona, because it's not realistic, right? Because then everything above 45 minutes starts counting on delay. So let's put it 2.5 hours, and then there is no delay because it flies actually 2 hours, right? So airlines start to plan having customers in mind, right? It's not that they don't have it now in US, they for sure have it, and customers are extremely important for them. But there are different departments scheduling the planes, making sure the planes are being rotated as often as possible, because the plane earns money only if it flies, right? So there are some temptations, but once you have a regulation, there is rules of the games. And I think the most important thing is to keep up with the promise, right? The role of the airline is to bring you safely and on time from point A to B.
Yeah.
And this is what you have to deliver on, right? And it doesn't matter it's low cost or not low cost, or the ticket was 40 euros or 100 euros, right? Your promise is to deliver people, right? Everything else, ticket prices, market forces. And, honestly, in Europe, you don't really see ticket prices of 40 euros anymore, right? Everything went
Yeah.
up so massively that you can compare the prices of low cost and no low cost airlines today.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I imagine the customer experience becomes even more important as the regulation starts to shift. So I look forward to that happening in the U.S. Just as a for instance, I had two big delays over the last month that I tried to put into AirHelp, one on Southwest, one on Delta. And I feel like if I was in Europe, it would have gone through, right? But because of probably the lack of regulation here in some cases, that's probably why a lot of the U.S. flights will get declined if you go to AirHelp. Is that the case?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, I don't know details of your flights, but this would be probably the case.
Common compared to the Europe. Interesting, very interesting. So, as travel continues to recover from COVID-19 impact, just in general, we went through the last few years. What other opportunities do you see for companies like AirHelp?
So the travel recovery is I think, faster than anyone thought, right? Of course, Today it's very easy to say for everyone. Of course, I knew that, right?
Of course,
but I know when 2 years ago we were sitting down and we saw the projections by IATA and Eurocontrol put forward, everyone was like, is it really possible to recover so quick? And you could also see that within the airline performance in 2022 that not everyone was really ready for what the data was showing. And yes, it recovered very quickly. And the travel sector as a business sector, of course, is recovering very nicely, including AirHelp. And there is few things that happened for us, right? One, during COVID, when our revenues dropped to zero, we had the opportunity to look our product portfolio and kind of rethink it and prepare for the future. We weren't the ones who thought COVID will finish in a month, but we also weren't the ones who will say it will last for 2 years, right? We thought, a few months it will last, and this is too serious for a week or two. So we took quite drastic actions very quickly. And one of the initiatives we did, we also looked at our products and what should develop. And we thought one of the things we really have to bet on is also travel insurance and insurtech. And this is what we tried to execute as good as we could. And now we see really this going very, very nicely across the globe. And for companies like ours, this product diversification really worked. And travel is such a massive ecosystem that you actually notice when it stops, right? So when everything stops, you notice how big it is, right? And then when it restarted slowly, you could see the small fruits by revenue streams popping up here and there. And we as AirHelp, we are hitting revenue records on all the angles today, but only because we tried to be prepared as much as we could for the restart of the business and prepare revenue streams by product diversification and also geographical diversification, right? So during COVID, we opened, we grew our offices. We opened offices in Spain. We've opened offices in Brazil, right, to grow. We started Asia, and it was all in the middle of COVID when nothing was happening, right? But this was all kind of putting seeds when everything is calm and nothing is happening. And then when it boomed, it exploded all across. And I can only imagine it's for the whole travel ecosystem. So all the travel companies we talk to around, they see this massive demand on all the angles.
You mentioned product diversification. So was this an effort in slowing down as a business, understanding, trying to understand where the world was headed, and then having several products that you guys rolled out?
Well, it was actually out of fear, right? So before COVID, one horse pony. We had this one product, European claim compensation, right? And when everything stopped in the middle of March, this one horse stopped, right? And then we said, okay. So then we very quickly, we decided, okay, this cannot happen again, right? But because of the nature where we are, legal tech, travel tech, we say, okay, we cannot go completely out of what we know and, where our talent is. Let's focus on more travel products, legal tech and insure tech. And we've tested quite a few things. We've tested many things, or looked on hundreds of ideas. But through all of those ideas, we identified quickly that we have to do one on product diversification. So what we offer to clients, and not only claim compensation, but very quickly we realized it has to include also insurance. And then what kind of insurance has to be, because we are technology company by heart, and this is what we do. We've decided it has to be parametric insurance. So no bureaucracy, no papers. We tell client he is eligible for compensation. Not he tells us, listen, it's not like a classic car insurance where, you have incident and then you have to call someone or text to let them know. Actually, no, we know all the flight data. So we know something happens, right? We don't need client coming to us. So we wanted this kind of insurance systems. So this is what we developed, and it went very nicely. And so the parametric insurance. So this is the first thing, diversify products. And the second thing we've done was look at the geography and see we cannot rely on Europe neither. So we have to diversify. We have to try more in US, a massive market, lots of people. We have to try more Canada. We have to look at what's happening in Turkey with their new regulation that back then was just shaping, and we've done that. We went to Brazil saying, okay, Brazil, massive travel, especially domestic market. There must be something for us. And luckily we were right. And then Asia as a massive hub, we started to partner with big Asian companies to help their travelers in their customer service. So we diversified our offerings, but also geographic expansion in the same time. And it all happened within, 12, 18 months. So it was really hard work. And of course, what you see now, it's only an effect of maybe 100 failed ideas, right? Because, only a few survived and, proved themselves. But we really looked around what can be good for us as a business and what can we pull out with our resources, right? Because we couldn't go in the middle of COVID, we couldn't go to any of the VC fund or PE fund saying, oh, we need more money, right? Because no one would look at travel. And so everything what we've done had been done with what we had. And we didn't have much.
So what were some of the failures of the products that you guys had to shut down, and why did you have to shut them down?
Well, we try one of the things we try, for example, refund for COVID canceled flights. That we at the beginning we fought very strongly. We have to help clients to refund for COVID canceled flights. Airlines were very reluctant. And even though we tried very hard because we had thousands of clients coming to us and please help us with refund. As you may remember, airlines were really delaying refunds. But then, we also talked to many airlines and they, kind of did say, listen, we are losing millions of euros a month, right? We basically have, we cannot, right? And of course, you might go into the whole reasons what happened with the airline earnings before COVID, but it was the reality. The airlines are not going to do it quick without government push on them or bailout or different mechanism in different countries. So in the end, we realized that everything what we've been doing was pretty much ping pong with airlines without real effect. So in the end, we couldn't really help our clients, and we've been massively frustrated with trying to negotiate it with airlines, right? So we had to say, okay, sorry, this is not something we can do because we don't see any effect. So we kind of stick to other products. But there was many products, we were preparing the whole product line around tax refund for international clients. As you know, when you travel to Europe, you can refund your VAT, value-added tax. So this was one of the initiatives. And that in the end, we thought all of these receipts and expenses, it's quite of manual work around it. And, it doesn't fit to our technology first approach where we want to automate as much and use humans actually only to deal with direct clients to help them to understand the issue, but the back processes we want to have automated. So this didn't fit our way of doing business. And then we tried different compensation models. You can say in countries where the law exists, but it's not enforceable. It didn't prove we can help clients with it, so we also dropped it. But there were hundreds of ideas, and some went to further tests, some went through MVP and dropped. But I think this is a part of the experience as well.
Yeah, you gotta have some failures in there, otherwise you're doing something wrong. So when you guys look into the future, and obviously there's some really interesting things going on around around travel right now too that come to mind for me are the kind of the rise of digital nomadism, of people living wherever they want, whenever they want, which is kind of in tandem with remote work culture, right? When you look at these business trends, how do you think that affects AirHelp's growth and strategy?
If you're asking me about our experience in this new concept, it's been a difficult journey for us because when the COVID started, of course, we had to close our offices and move all remote, and me personally being completely against working from home. I never believed in it, right? I'm of a culture. You have to be in office. You need to have a mentor. You need to sit close to your boss and the mentor, sometimes the same, and your colleagues. And you have to constantly brainstorm. You have to constantly exchange ideas. You have to constantly adjust and correct yourself in order to grow. And this is probably still very valid, right? But I didn't think you can be efficient and effective out of it, right? Out of this kind of office zone. And especially, from the culture of Japanese culture, when my first jobs were in Toyota in Japan, right? When it's, this, go and see and test and try and get dirty, right? And this is what was so deeply in my brain. But luckily, being beyond technology company, we've set up different kind of monitors and screens on the efficiency of the systems and how people are working and how the claims are, or insurances going through the system. Are they going slower, faster, quicker? Are they resolved with success? And we realized through COVID that actually our efficiency per employee, that metric I don't really like, but it is what it is. So throughput per employee is growing, right? And this comes from different angles. One, people are more focused, less meetings, right? No travel. So, of course, they have more time because they don't have to go for coffee, then go to printer. They don't do many things. So they have more time to actually sit and focus on their core job. Mm-hmm. But it also comes from us being, we have to help people now. Actually, we really have to help them because they are stuck at home. So we've invested in them even more in automations, right? We invested more in tools that help people perform their job better because we had to do it, right? There was no other choice. And this proved me that actually this can work. So now AirHelp, everyone works on hybrid mode. So we have people who comes to office 5 days a week, like myself, because they want to. You are absolutely fine to come 1 day a week. And we also have a number of people who come only when there is important meeting. And meeting being, workshop or brainstorming session, right? So, and this proved to work. So now I wouldn't say we are massive fans of remote work as such, but we've found a solution for it that can work. And we also see, various other companies that can, they also work similarly and it worked for them. Of course, there are some industries that is not acceptable completely, and I also get it. But in our type of the business, when you're a technology company, it doesn't matters so much and actually makes it easier for us in many cases. We operate 24/7, 18 languages, right? So it's easier for us to have people, living in Brazil or in US covering different time zones and speaking the languages there within their own time zone, right? Versus in the previous model, we would be so focused on having everyone in the what we call claim processing center. It was like a massive office speaking 18 languages, and we would bring people from all of the countries to this one office and make them move and sit there. And then after 2 years, they would be unhappy because we brought them there. They don't really like it anymore. But now, seems like everyone will be happy because everyone still have the same choice. They can still go and relocate if they want to. This office is still the biggest office we have, but more and more people decides to work from the destination where they feel comfortable in their personal life, but it's also effective at work.
Right.
It has to be also effective at work, right? Otherwise, it doesn't. There is no win-win anymore. But it worked for us, and I see it works for other companies.
Yeah, no, those are good points. When you look at those same trends in line with, maybe the increase in people traveling because they're being digital nomads or because they're going from place to place a little more often, do you see that affecting AirHelp's business outside of your own workforce?
We see a little bit, but it's not massive force, right? Remote work is not dominant type of work. Majority of the businesses has to stay put. Warehouse employees, road construction, and retail. It has to stay. So actually, the business that can work remote is probably around 10 to 15% of the workforce, and then. What we see growing the fastest currently, is something what we call VFF, so visiting friends and family, right? And within this, it's a lot of nomad workers within this group. So, but it's not the entire group, but within this group is a lot of people who work remotely, and they take advantage of the opportunity company gives them, and we have several Brazilians working for our office in Barcelona. They can now go home for a month and they go 1 week of vacation, 3 weeks of work out of there, right? Mm-hmm. So we see this behavior coming quite a lot. It's still not dominant travel, but within the bigger group of visiting friends and family, it is the fastest growing travel group.
Interesting. You mentioned a little bit about your own evolution in thinking about remote work and, being against it completely, right? And then eventually evolving in your own perspective. Are there any other, call them leadership or management style evolutions that you've experienced in the way that, you drive growth in the team?
I think what I'm trying to be focused is on two very simple aspects, right? One is performance of the individual or of the team, and another thing is trust, right? Trust that the person makes the right decisions, and trust that the person governs its own team in the right way, right? And this also, you could see it also through remote work experience, right? In one moment, I had to trust that this will work, and the people actually will keep working from home, right? They will have potentially more distraction, but they will keep working. And I had to trust it, right, at the beginning. And now I completely trust them that they know what they're doing, and they will keep working, and they're hard working, and that they make all the decisions. And if needed, I trust them. They come to the office because, the in-person experience on the workshop, you cannot replicate online, right? Yeah. At least not today, right? Maybe in the future you will be. So this is about, so it's all about trust that the people are with you, are the right people. And of course, a lot is my own choice, right? Because I hire a lot of people. And, but the other aspect that's equally important is the performance of the teams and individuals that you have to be able to measure, right, through various KPIs, OKRs, whatever you call it. But one, you have very emotional trust, and then you have this very analytical performance. And if you strike a good balance with the people that work with you, I think this is a winning solution. And also, I know whenever I go, I also bring some people from my previous company or people I know. It is because of the trust to them. I trust them that they will do their job, basically. And this is as simple as this, right? There is no anything that that you have to write or read a business book about it, right?
Yeah.
It comes down to hardworking people who you know, and you know how they work, and you know their pluses and minuses, and you try to balance with the new hires. You try to balance the minuses so they cancel out, right? And etc. etc.
So when you're looking at talent development, how do you ensure that your team members and your team leadership and everyone on the team continues to grow and level up in their abilities?
Yeah, so I think some of the things happen, like in AirHelp case, I think the most important thing happened unintentionally. Actually, something we really didn't want to happen, and it happened, and it helped the remaining team. So this was through COVID. We unfortunately we had to scale down the team. We're above 700 people, and we had to scale down to a little bit more than 200. But we've done everything we can to keep the best 200, right? So through one-to-one discussions, talks, vision preaching, that there is a light behind COVID, that it will be bigger, better, and the team that remains will help us reshape AirHelp to a better company. So the core of the team that stayed really helped us to progress on various topics as we discussed, but also we initiated with the team various other topics like data mining and the whole data-driven culture. So we kept really the best people, very analytical, hardworking, committed, and with potential to grow further, right? So, and with that, something what we didn't think about happened. The performance level of the team, by the virtue of who stayed, went up, right? So you can say the average throughput of the person, of course, because the better part of the team stayed, went up, right? So then when we started to hire people, new people, what we've noticed, their benchmark, it's completely in different place than it used to be, right? Because then benchmark, they have to now meet the average of the existing team, right? That is, few points higher than it used to be before COVID. So that every new hire that comes to the company, has to kind of level up to the average. So the entire performance of the company keeps up. And of course, our job is to make sure it stays there, and so the company doesn't, average down again because of the number of people we hire. And it's it's a lot of work and it's difficult. But this is one of the things that happen in our company, and we've noticed it only when we really started hire people after the COVID stopped. So let's say since last year, and then to answering your question on what do we do today on it, well, I think is to constantly challenge people and challenge the solutions. Constantly ask yourself, why do you think this is good, right? And asking question also within the team or workshop, what is good? What do we judge good? And for different company, good is different thing, right? What is good for us, right? And this can be on various. It can be funnel conversion. It can be SLA of the important system. It could be brand recognition. It can be market share, right? It can be OKR delivery. It can be employee survey, right? Responding even some emotional questions. what is good? What do we judge as good? And what do we judge as not good? And it's an important question because there's a lot of companies I've met in the past that say, well, we are perfect. But then when you look on what they do, it's like, yeah, okay, your notion of perfect
Yeah.
is probably not what my notion of perfect is, right? So it's also very important to kind of have this calibration within the teams.
What lessons did you learn from all of that around attrition or just around anything? Any key lessons that other founders can learn from?
I think you always should try to retain the best employees, right? This is number. I think this is no brainer. Hiring new person is so much more expensive and a massive risk. But if someone mentally decides to leave and comes to you, it's like, listen, I found a new job, I almost never try to keep the person. And there's always this, this bunch of people behind me who those people potentially report to. It's like, oh, you have to keep him, we have to give him salaries, we have to give him this, he has to stay, he's so critical. First of all, no one is critical, right? Second, if person already did mental move, keeping him probably is keeping him or her for another 6, maybe 12 months, right? This person is already mentally explored different ideas, and it will stay in this way. And it's only right for the person to explore it. And then I'm completely fine if this person comes back, right? After 12 months or whatever it is of experience, they come, it's like, okay, the grass is not greener on the other side. I had a good experience, but actually I like people here, right? So absolutely, I'm absolutely happy to see people coming back, but don't keep people, don't force them to stay. But this is with the attrition, currently in AirHelp, we have actually opposite problem. We have no attrition. So now we are battling this, what to do, right? Because you can manage, like, of course, for a year, probably, maybe 2, but then you have to think how to bring fresh blood to the teams, right? So there's, of course, many options. One option is to start mixing people between teams, right? So this, cross-divisional movements between people, maybe looking back on the performance and saying, okay, maybe the bar became too low, but even though we know it's already high because of our experience, and so we should probably rethink something about this. Or should we force new recruitments to just for the flesh blood kind of thing and new ideas? So we have now the separate another problem and the lack of attrition. So, but with very, very high attrition for us, it was a devastating. If I remember COVID, right, I had probably several calls a day trying to explain people then, why we have to go separate ways. And it's probably one of the worst experiences in my life.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of times there were, people who had given their heart for the company and years of service. But we were facing bankruptcy very quick if we don't do anything, right? So we had to protect what we could. And almost every day, I've been counting people. It's like how many more I have to have those calls with, and it was devastating calls, right? So it's so much better to be in a growing company, and especially if you can grow profitably like we do now. We try to stay healthy, profitable, and so then you have a story for the employees that they, of course, also believe in the future of the company, especially that after all they went through in the past years.
Yeah. No. Well said. Well said. All right. Let's close us off today with quick founder five quick hit questions about you and your growth. First one is the top metric or KPI that you are relentlessly focused on.
Yeah, it's a tough question because I probably manage like 100 KPIs a day on a very quick scan, and because we are half B2B business, half B2C, I do put a lot of effort on focusing on B2C part. We could B2B, once you said, on B2C, I look very carefully on media gross profit. So this is revenue minus CAC. So the trends are always stable, ideally up, but for sure not losing money on B2C front.
Awesome. All right. Top tip for growth stage founders like yourself.
I think a cliche, but team is everything. You can have whatever vision you want, whatever plan for the year, but if you don't have the right team to execute it, and you don't make sometimes harsh decisions around the team, it's road to nowhere. Right? Team is everything, and then the second one is preach and mentor and focus this team on real practical problem solving. Too many times we don't solve problems, but we solve results or effects, something we see, but actually is not underlying problem. So focus and preach and mentor team on practical problem solving.
All right. Favorite book or podcast that has helped you to grow as a CEO?
Well, I'm close to 45, so I'm from the generation that still read books. But the book I think I remember the most and make a very strong impact on me very, very early. I think during my MBA or just before my MBA was Good to Great by Collins. And I think for me, this was eye-opener. I was working for Toyota back then, and I realized actually I'm lucky working for Toyota. And of course, the following book as well was great.
Excellent. All right. A piece of advice that counters traditional wisdom.
Again, cliche, don't overcomplicate, simple and slim solutions. But this is, I would say, is traditional already. I would say always look for problems. It doesn't mean you have to solve all of them, right? But always look for problems. Problem as also definition of the problem is tricky sometimes, right? Problem is a gap between ideal scenario and where we today with whatever it is, right? So there is a gap then. So every problem is an opportunity of sort, right? So look for problems because then you will see all the opportunities. Then of course you prioritize with the team what to bite, but look for problems.
That's great. All right. What is going to be the title of your autobiography?
Probably I would say a Family Guy, but non-cartoon edition. So
not Peter Griffin?
No. I don't think my autobiography, I would like it to be about my work. I think there is much more hopefully to be said later on. And I would like that a lot of this is around my family.
Excellent. Well, you've given a ton to our listeners today, Tomasz. So time for a little bit of self-promotion. How can those listening help you out?
No, thank you very much for having me. It was a great pleasure. I'm becoming a big fan of your podcast, and if you're out there listening, if you need any help, please reach out. We are here to help as well, and you're doing a great job, Jim. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for coming on. And to those of you out there, thank you for listening to The Dirt. Tomasz's story is a wonderful one and a lot of good lessons learned today. So thanks for joining us, Tomasz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.